On the same night that Iranian forces claimed they engaged American aircraft and fired on U.S. naval assets near the Strait of Hormuz, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was taken to a hospital in Jerusalem. The two events may be unrelated, but the timing has made it impossible for anyone watching this conflict to separate them. The hospitalization at the Hadassah Ein Kerem Medical Center happened at approximately 11 p.m. The visit only became public after Hebrew media reported it, and the Prime Minister's office responded afterward with the explanation that it was dental treatment. The official explanation was routine dental treatment, but the late-night timing and the broader secrecy around his health are why the questions did not stop there. Because this is the same hospital where Netanyahu was treated for a malignant prostate tumor. And this is a prime minister whose office has a documented pattern of disclosing medical events late, under pressure, and with minimal detail. Hours before the hospital visit became public, a confrontation had erupted over the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. Central Command confirmed it had struck missile sites and boats near Bandar Abbas that it said were preparing mine threats. CENTCOM called the operations defensive. Iran's foreign ministry called them aggressive and unjustified and warned that the strikes would not go unanswered. The IRGC claimed it engaged a U.S. aircraft and shot down an American drone, claims Reuters said were not independently verified. Iranian sources reported at least 4 IRGC personnel killed. Explosions were reported across Bandar Abbas and other parts of southern Iran. And then, while the region was processing the most significant military exchange since the ceasefire began, the news broke that Netanyahu was in a hospital in Jerusalem. The Prime Minister's office said the visit was for dental treatment. That was the full explanation. No further medical details were provided. No doctors spoke publicly. No photographs or footage of Netanyahu entering or leaving the hospital were released. The statement came only after the press had already reported the visit. For a prime minister whose health has become one of the most scrutinized subjects in Israeli public life, the response followed the same pattern that has defined every previous medical disclosure. Silence first, media reports second, a minimal explanation third, and no follow-up. This is not the first time Netanyahu's office has disclosed a medical event in a way that raised more questions than it answered. In 2023, his office said he was dehydrated. He ended up with a pacemaker implanted. In 2024, he underwent hernia surgery. Later that year, he had surgery tied to his prostate condition. And earlier this year, he revealed that he had undergone radiation treatment for a malignant prostate tumor, but only after the treatment was already completed. He said he withheld the diagnosis because Iran would have used it as wartime propaganda. Israeli coverage of the cancer disclosure highlighted how limited the formal medical detail was and how many timeline questions were left unanswered. Each event followed the same arc. Something happened. The public was not told. When the press found out, a minimal explanation was offered. And each time, the reality turned out to be more serious than the initial disclosure suggested. During the war, gaps in Netanyahu's public visibility fed speculation that grew every time a new health disclosure arrived late. Online speculation about his condition escalated sharply during the war, but many of the most extreme claims were unsupported and should not be treated as evidence. Viral clips and frame-by-frame claims circulated online, but they do not amount to reliable evidence about Netanyahu's medical condition. What they do reveal is how wide the gap between official communication and public perception has become. The government dismissed the speculation. But the speculation did not emerge from conspiracy theorists inventing stories. It emerged from a vacuum that Netanyahu's own communication strategy created by withholding information repeatedly and then expecting the public to trust the next statement without question. While Netanyahu was in hospital and the Hormuz confrontation was unfolding, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was in India announcing that a deal with Iran was still possible. According to Reuters, the draft framework includes a temporary truce, reopening Hormuz, some financial relief, and a negotiation window for a broader deal. Iran has made frozen assets a central demand in the talks, turning any ceasefire framework into a financial as well as a security negotiation. Washington has sent mixed signals, with Rubio projecting progress while Trump and his team continue tempering expectations of an imminent breakthrough. The diplomatic track is alive, but it is running alongside a military track that produced strikes, counterstrikes, and a hospitalized prime minister all in the same 24-hour window. The ceasefire that was announced on April 8th is still technically in effect, but CENTCOM is striking missile sites. Iran is claiming drone shootdowns. The IRGC says it engaged American aircraft, and the foreign ministry in Tehran is promising retaliation. What is left of the ceasefire is not a pause in hostilities. It is a diplomatic label that both sides continue to reference while conducting military operations that would normally be described as acts of war. The Strait of Hormuz remains restricted. Roughly a fifth of the world's oil normally passes through it, and the confrontation that produced the latest round of strikes is the clearest signal yet that neither side considers the ceasefire to be functioning as anything more than a framework for managing escalation rather than preventing it. Netanyahu is 76 years old. He has gone through a string of significant medical episodes over the last 2 years, including a pacemaker, surgery, and cancer-related treatment. He remains the central wartime decision-maker, which is why each new medical disclosure now carries political and strategic weight. The health of a wartime leader is also a matter of public and strategic concern, not only a private medical issue. If the decisions about whether to extend the ceasefire, how to respond to Iranian escalation, and whether to coordinate with Washington on a renewed offensive are being made by a leader whose condition the public does not fully understand, that is a governance question, not a medical one. Israeli media outlets have become increasingly direct in their reporting on Netanyahu's health. The Times of Israel noted that the hospital visit happened before the government acknowledged it. Hebrew media broke the story, forcing a response. The press in Israel is not speculating about what is wrong with Netanyahu. It is documenting what his office is not willing to say. And that distinction is important because it means the credibility gap is not being driven by conspiracy theories. It is being driven by the Prime Minister's own communication strategy, which has consistently prioritized control over candor. The military situation that formed the backdrop to Netanyahu's hospital visit is not stabilizing. It is escalating. The CENTCOM strikes near Bandar Abbas were described as defensive. But Iran's response, the claimed drone shootdown, the vow that strikes would not go unanswered, and the IRGC's claim of engaging American aircraft suggests Tehran does not view the ceasefire as constraining its right to respond. The Strait of Hormuz is now a military flashpoint where boats are being struck, drones are allegedly being engaged, and missiles are claimed to have been fired, all under the formal umbrella of a ceasefire that exists in language but not in practice. Iranian state media and other current reporting described Mojtaba Khamenei as issuing a Hajj message warning that regional states would no longer shield U.S. bases. The warning declared that Middle Eastern nations will no longer serve as shields for American military bases, and that America will no longer have a safe haven for mischief in the region. The United States maintains a broad military footprint across the Middle East, including long-standing facilities in Gulf and neighboring states that host American forces. Khamenei's statement is a direct challenge to every one of those host governments. It is telling them that the era of absorbing the risks of hosting American forces while Iran stayed silent is over. So this is what one night produced. Iran struck back at American forces near the Strait of Hormuz. CENTCOM confirmed strikes on IRGC boats and missile sites. The IRGC claimed it engaged American aircraft and shot down a drone. Iran's foreign ministry warned that the strikes would not go unanswered. Rubio said a deal was still possible. And Benjamin Netanyahu was taken to a Jerusalem hospital at 11 p.m., with his office offering the same kind of minimal explanation it has offered every time before. The hospital is the same one where he later said he underwent successful radiation treatment for a malignant prostate tumor. He has gone through a string of significant medical episodes over the last 2 years, including a pacemaker, surgery, and cancer-related treatment. He is 76 years old. The region is escalating. The ceasefire is not holding. The strait is still restricted. Iran is promising retaliation. And the leader who is supposed to be making the decisions that determine whether this war resumes or ends was in a hospital at night during the most significant military exchange since April. His office says it was dental work. The problem for Netanyahu's office is that earlier medical episodes were also disclosed late or only after public scrutiny intensified. The question about Netanyahu's health is no longer whether he is ill. It is whether anyone would tell the public if he were.